Yeah. What is happening? It is 10 a.m. on a Friday morning Eastern time. I literally just got off a chat with my friend, Coach Barry Robinson, over on Instagram. I think I posted it to the page. We had such a great chat and had a lot of fun. You make friends with people in whatever field you're in. Hopefully you do anyways, especially if you work a lot. And I work a lot. So you end up making friends. Uh, this show, I'm calling it, I labeled it Life and Fighting because I'm dumb sometimes. I think it's called Life in Fighting. I literally just was like, I'm going to do some streams and talk about some of the things that, by studying martial arts, we learn about life that becomes applicable to other areas of our life. And so I just created a name for it, and I think I labeled it wrong, but it doesn't matter. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about, I just mentioned you make friends in whatever field you're in if you're lucky. One of my friends is Jon Anik. He's been a sort of a business mentor to me and broadcasting, and he's a very good friend and a very, very good guy. Very good guy. Great at what he does. And a really cool guy, like, honestly. Way even cooler than if you know him than he sees on TV. Awesome cat. He does some stuff with his twin brother. Jon Anik does stuff with his twin brother on their platforms. They're getting into he really loves gaming, gambling, wagering, odds, all these things. They're getting into some of that with the NFL, and it's awesome. But so recently, we're trying to learn what we can about the world around it. My friend Jon Anik was talking about his own experience recently, and how negative people are around the fight space. And I think that's probably true. I don't experience it as much because we all get to kind of curate with intention our own lives to a certain degree. You get to curate what's in your feed. You get to curate. My friend here, Death to Derp. Thank you. Yeah, I was just chatting with Coach Barry Robinson, who's a brilliant coach. She's in Thailand. That was on my Instagram just before coming in here, and it was really fun. We learned a lot. But yeah, so my friend Jon Anik was talking about his experience lately and the negativity around fighting, and I think it's there. I don't experience it as much because, among other things, I don't really cover the UFC. Over time, I covered it less and less and less. Some of that was, they had taken down my page because, you go and you make educational content around footage. That is 100% legal. Yet, despite the fact that it's legal, and even though they know it is legal, they can actually pursue having your platforms killed. They did that to me with a Facebook page that I had a lot of followers, especially in Myanmar, that I had earned by commentating left way in Myanmar, and wedding pictures and stuff. And then my Instagram page had 100,000, and some guy there killed it on purpose, purposefully, knowing well that I can use these things for education. Anyway, so I was like, I just won't cover that. And there's a lot more I can cover. There's a glare coming off my glasses, so I don't need them right now. There's a lot of other stuff I can cover. So some of that just developed naturally. But the less I covered the UFC, the less I consumed it. Less I consumed stories around what was happening, the narratives of who's mad at who and who said what on Twitter and all this kind of stuff. And the less I had an audience that was consuming that. All of a sudden, I had, over time, 750,000 audience that came to me for everything else but the UFC, which is incredibly freeing. So suddenly I wasn't immersed in that negativity because my friend Jon was just talking about his own experience, how, as he said it and many others, how negative the MMA space is. I don't know that that's true. I think the UFC has a kind of a negative environment, a lot of hating and a lot of anger, and let's get into this a little bit. Now, if we go back to kind of the purpose of what I'm hoping to chat about is, looking for insight about life from these things. So my kind of point is, this is kind of true. Most people will admit it, particularly the people who, when I posted about this, will be like, Jon needs to get a tampon, but whatever, whatever they are proving it to be true. So there is a lot of it. Now, The UFC is a particularly negative space right now. Doesn't mean it will be forever. That's why I called this thing the negativity era. It's just a lot of that. But so is politics. So is news. A lot of the world, there is a lot of negativity in the world that's become sort of normalized. So if we're kind of looking for things about life that we can learn, we get into sort of an idea. First of all, let me give some examples. People were talking about another man's deceased father at a press conference, somebody else's wife, and then someone else's childhood trauma. Although the childhood trauma they were talking about with that particular guy, he had also talked about the wives or whatever. Now, most of the reaction that I saw, and I consumed very little of the things around these things, so it gets to me quite late, which is why I'm kind of mentioning this weeks or months after these was a thing. It has to trickle to me because I don't consume the .coms or I don't consume any UFC content, really. I don't consume any of the behind the scenes, none of that, right? I consume just fighting, not the world around it, not the stories, not the narratives, not the beefs, not the matchup announcements, not the business. Although occasionally I talk about the business just as it relates to the thing. I just consume fighting. So it took me a while to actually even get exposed to discussions of a man's deceased father or someone else's wife or childhood trauma. But of course, that is negative, right? That is dark. Now, some of the response to that will also be, is this going too far? This is unacceptable. That's all reaction, right? And opinions are traps, right? And let me touch on that for a second. We are, of course, entitled to our opinion, to an opinion. However, we are not required by any law of man or God or the world to form one. They form by themselves fairly automatically with no mechanism generally required to form one. It just happens. You're mad at this or you like that. If you are anti this or pro that, much of that is a reaction to the limited amount of things you've been exposed to in the world, right? So when we start to break it down, this guy said this about his dad, is that unacceptable? All of this is just people being people. The world right now, quite a stressful environment. People feeling there's a lot of the world that currently feels like they don't have a lot of control over where their life is going. Whether they are aware of it or not, that's not true of everyone, but there's large sections of the world who feel that way. Frightened by many things, things they've learned from their parents or school or the world around them causes them to form an opinion of something's bad or something is good. You then hear that. If it contrasts with yours, you have an opinion. You do not have to have an opinion. You can always reject the very fragile human need to form an opinion in hopes that you can continue to learn. It's not easy to do. It's something you actually have to work on and practice over time, but it can be done. So when we look at, this is something sometimes I say, and I don't mean to be negative, but the UFC is to combat sports and martial arts what the Fast and the Furious is to movies, okay? And that is not a negative thing. The Fast and the Furious are a gigantically successful thing. In fact, one of the identifying features of the Fast and the Furious movies, they spend a lot of money, they do things very glitzy, everything is kind of loud and bright and over the top and not all that complex. It makes a lot of money. It's hyper successful and people like it, right? So that's kind of what's going on there. I don't mean it in a negative way. How could it be negative to say that something is to their thing what a very successful thing is to their thing, right? It is. But that is more or less what it is. So in that kind of environment, you are currently celebrated and rewarded if you do some of these things. If you talk about that guy's deceased father at a press conference, a lot of attention happens, a lot of media happens. As a result, people are talking, search engines, all these things are happening on the internet. That benefits the corporation you work for, which then they will reward you in some way with another fight or, a key matchup or some exposure or headlining. You are rewarded for these things. So it's just the nature of it, right? It's just going to be like that. the key to it, and I would say, so Leon Edwards is a brilliant fighter. I'm pretty sure he's still the champion, although I don't follow those things as much as the actual fighting. Yes, he is still the champion. So when a guy said something about your father who had passed away when you were young, murdered, I believe, I'm sure his coach, Dave, his coach, I worked with him on a commentary job in Amsterdam at Levels Fight League. Great guy, really good guy, very smart. I'm sure the coach would sit down and go, we must understand the truth of what's happening. So somebody says something bad to you about you, and this is where I'm trying to find, what can we learn about life through these things? That's how does any of this apply to the rest of us? So somebody says something about you, right? Somebody says something mean about you. Now, this was Jon Anik's experience. He's like, man, every time I turn on stuff, all I did was say, I thought this guy won in a broadcast. I'm paid to form an opinion and express it. My bosses tell me I should pick a side and not ride the fence. And I don't know what's going on, why my YouTube is suddenly coming out of my phone. So this is what he's supposed to do. And then people are mad at him for it. Now, this applies to all of us. When we post something on Facebook, some people say mean things about us, right? This is just a factual truth of the world we live in. This is how it is in 2024. Now, what are the controllables? Most of life can be reduced to a list of controllables. I've got this very root concept I got from my friend David Mullins years ago when we were doing, I hope Mullins is doing great. I find there's probably very little chance he's watching this because he's got family and he's in Ireland. But if he is, Dave, I love you. And we should catch up soon. But my friend David Mullins, who is a sport psych consultant and a performance coach, he would sit down with his athletes, and this applies to all of us, and this applies to this topic, and go, what are our list of controllables? The things that are actually within our control, and what are the non-controllables? And once you look at almost anything and figure out where it goes, if something is within our control and we choose to spend some time and effort working at it, we can do that. If something is not within our control at all, or very little, or certain things are controllable, but most is not, it is none of our business, as it applies to being a good artist, father, neighbor, human, citizen, whatever. The things that we cannot control steal our time, attention, focus, emotion, controllables and non-controllables. Everything fits into that category. Now, a non-controllable is at this press for the fighter, in this case, Leon Edwards, months ago. Again, it takes forever for these things to trickle to me. I'm just looking at the art of fighting, not any of these stories. My life is much better as a result. I'm a much happier person consuming no news whatsoever, whether that is news of a war, one of the 30 wars in the world currently, and CNN or Fox or whatever wants to tell me I should know about this one in particular. I don't need to do that. Neither do you at all. Sometimes you go, well, I need to know what's going on in the world. Well, you don't know about the other 29. You're only getting a mainline injection of this one, and it is negatively affecting your life. Same thing, what somebody said around fighting. I consume fighting, not the things that were said around fighting. I consume fighting, not titles, or fighting, not matchups, fighting, not any of those things. I just consume martial arts. That's what I like. So I got this. Leon Edwards, a guy that is on a thing that he's supposed to fight, says something horrific about in this case, his father was murdered when he was young. Or somebody says something about your wife or your children. This is all happening, factually happening. It will continue, right? This will continue. So for the fighter sitting there, I'll get how it applies to all of us. This is a very easy analogy. It applies to all of us almost the same way. The fighter sitting there, what is a non-controllable? What my opponent might say. Non-controllable. He will say what he's going to say. There's a very good chance he will say things intentionally in hopes of affecting me negatively and or getting a lot of attention. The easiest way to get attention is to go more extreme than the last press conference. So this will continue. Say something horrific. That is a non-controllable. He may do that. What is controllable is how I react to it. Now, if somebody said something about my deceased family member, it doesn't sound like it might be controllable, but it is. We have the ability to control our reactions. We have the ability to see these things for what they are. Fighter that I'm facing says something negative about me. He says it to get my reaction, negatively affect me, create my emotion, make me tired. Emotion is fatiguing. I have a fight tomorrow night. Distracted, and he's going to do it to get attention. He's going to do it to create talk on the internet. He's going to do it to create debate and engagement. He will do that. I know this may happen. I will put my emotions in check. I will see the reality of what it is. It has no real meaning on me. He's doing it for his own reasons. And so I will control my emotion. I will control how I react. I will control what I say. I will control how I take it on and how I process it. And that's what I will control. Now, this does apply. I'm going to chat. I texted my friend Jon the other day. And of course, people are giving him shit for just telling the truth. So, of course, it's worse. I'm going to give him a call. Maybe we'll do a stream in the coming weeks. I don't know. We're friends. And Jon's a great guy. Great guy. But it's same for him. What are our controllables in this? Like he said, one is I'm not going to read it. I'm going to block people on my platforms that are angry or negative or whatever. In my case, my controllables became, I've curated my platforms to being people who like martial arts, learning, growth mindset, little philosophy, and then created things around, got further and further away from hype and narratives and all this. And as a result, it sort of created an environment where I get very little of that. So some of the controllables was in the creation of your own environment. And people are like, you're an echo chamber. Everything's an echo chamber. If you're hearing about the war constantly, you're an echo chamber. If you're hearing about the news or politics or, the narrative around the UFC, whatever, everybody's in an echo chamber. Curate your own so that you can take on some intelligent things that disagree with you, but intelligent and kind, generally kind. Take on some. I have some friends that have the opposite thoughts as me about politics or life or human beings, martial arts, learning, all these things. But they're kind people, and they're calm people, and they're not angry people. Anger and emotion, these are our controllables. We can curate our environment and control how we do things. We can also not read it. Now, Joe Rogan famously said he doesn't read any of the comments. Now, one, if he spent 2 hours on it, it'd be 2 hours of his life gone, and he would not get 1.1% of it anyways. You can't consume it. It's too much. And that is another controllable, where you spend your time and attention. These are our controllables. We can choose. I'm going to take some questions in a bit too. And I hope this is actually useful. But if it isn't, you probably would leave because that's your controllable. And I have the great fortune, I don't need more likes or shares or engagements, and I don't need to create debate. A lot of this, when I say traps, you're being asked to make an emotional reaction to something right now, whether it is, the Oscars or the NBA or the UFC or, whatever. There are people right now, millions of them, creating content when the goal of the content is to create engagement with you. And the easiest way to do it is to get you emotional, have you form a knee-jerk opinion and fight about it in their comments. That is what people are trying to do to us right now. We don't have to do it. We do not have to do it. But if in our world, others are doing it, our controllable is do not read it, or read it, but understand these are expressions of their experience and are truly none of your business. When somebody tells me that I suck or I'm ugly or I don't know what I'm talking about or whatever, most people who are not reacting with the primitive part of the brain and just stimulus response humans don't do that, right? Most people do not watch somebody on YouTube or television and then angrily say, I actually once got I found this amazing. Somebody once, maybe this is I was doing a lot of YouTube until about 2018 when I really focused on short form, and I started to really fall in love with making these poetic videos. And, it's given me a good life, and I really still love it. But I like coming back on and thinking out loud. It's very useful for me, and some people seem to like it. And but I was doing a lot of back then. I was doing 2, 3, 4, 5 videos a week on YouTube, and somebody wrote, "I've watched every one of your videos, and you are the worst, and this is the worst one of them all." And I thought, why did you watch all that? It's your controllable. You don't have to watch unless there's something about being angry that is starting to feel very comfortable for you. So again, my friend's experience, suddenly like seeing so much negativity, and it is negative. The world has a lot of negativity through our not yet developed understanding of how social media is affecting our own lives. There's a lot of negativity as a result. Maybe it will change. Maybe the pendulum will swing hard the other way. Maybe it won't. Maybe this is going to be part of society always. What we can control is our reaction to it, right? If your opponent says something about you, you cannot control that. It is a non-controllable. You can control how you react to it. If something is negative on the internet, and a lot of people tell you, you suck, you're the worst, your hair is a joke, whatever. When people make fun of my hair, it reinforces for me that I am doing this, looking this way for myself, despite the fact that other people don't like it. It's that reinforcement that I am doing what I like, even though the world tells me they don't like it. And that is a controllable. I can look at it that way. Oh, wait, this response can be useful in telling me, wait a second, why do I dye my hair in my 50s? I want to. I'm not fooling anybody. In fact, here's clear evidence that people hate it. But I like it. And so these practices of being able to be yourself and be honest and authentic to yourself, despite what somebody said, these are all within your control. Let's take some questions because it's super fun that people come on. Okay, let's start up. Great conversation you just had with Coach Barry. Yeah, thank you. A great talk with Coach Barry. Yeah, people, that's on Instagram. I posted it to the page. What's good, Robin? People being vicious jerks to me seems more the internet as a whole. Unhappy people project that outwards. It speaks more to how many deeply discontented people there are. It is true, and that's okay. And in fact, when you see that, and if you really feel that, if you truly feel that way, wait a second, this guy's angry. That means he may be having a really tough time. Yes, he said, I'm this or that, or I look this way, or I'm an idiot or whatever. But does that actually mean that, number one, the worst traits and behaviors are rewarded on the internet? That does seem to be the case right now. Somebody saved whatever, the access social media in the last 10 years has created a self-absorbed, opinionated, knee-jerk society who only wants to make others feel horrible. James, I don't disagree with you, but it's created a lot of many things. It does encourage knee-jerk opinions. It does, and rewards them with a kick of dopamine if you're sitting on the thing. But truthfully, your opinion forms based on. We must all look at the world when we pause for a second and just kind of look at what we're in. What's the world we're in? Well, the world has, let's say, we're just going to make up a number, 100 billion pieces of information, and we got 94 of them. So we don't actually know anything, right? Like we don't know anything. The things we're quite sure that we know, because we may have consumed some information that gave us that seemed truthful, it is a blip of the information that is possible to be known. If we really take that on, suddenly our own opinion seems very, very reactionary. And in fact, like a trap, this will trap us in believing we know something. The reward of having a quick opinion is you feel like you know, right? That's a good feeling. Uncertainty is a very uncomfortable feeling, but if you can cultivate it, it makes your life way better. You get better at the things that you want to learn. You learn a lot more about things. You start to be able to see things in a calmer, more serene way, because suddenly I'm not mad at everything. Why would I be mad? I don't know anything about that topic. I believe I do, but I don't. Because of the 900 billion possible pieces of information, I got 38 of them. Like I don't have any information, right? If we translate it to fighting, something happens and a guy says, oh, he stepped this way, he shouldn't have moved to the left. Well, there was 6,000 things taking place. That's one. but that may be for a different reason. So, you know, we like to explain things in simple ways. It makes us feel more comfortable. It makes us feel more comfortable because we know things, we understand things. But the truth is, we don't, right? So once we take that on, we become much calmer about a lot of these things. James, fuck the haters, your hair ain't for me, but I'd never tell you how to look. It is odd that somebody tells another person how to do their hair or clothes. Try not to post anything I would not say directly to someone's face. That's a really, really good place to try to be. Be who and what you want, no matter what, but also realize you have to deal with idiots when you're prepared for it. Yeah, I mean, this is all part of the world, right? Nuance does not speak to the crowd. The crowd is like a more primitive human psyche. The simpler, the better. Cody, that is really great stuff. The crowd. Yeah, when we think of the crowd as a being, instead of as the 9,000 individuals it is, or 100 million individuals it is, that we can understand it quite differently. The crowd, you're right. The crowd behaves differently than the individuals in the crowd. That's really good stuff. I'm going to do a little reading about that. But so long and the short of it, the key thing, I'm going to chat with my buddy Jon later today or tomorrow or in the coming days. And I'm sure like he woke up, if anything, it's great. You know, this is one of the takeaways, ultimately, engagement. So why on earth did I make 2,000? And so I have, say, on just Instagram, I've made 2,656 posts. I've probably made about 1,300 when the UFC killed my account. I was saying I consume less and less over time. Not consuming that quite negative space has made my life significantly better and created my development in ways that are very different than the people who consume that or work in that environment. It's given me a lot of freedom, and I probably make triple the money I would make if I worked there now. So, which is wild. But what was I saying? Yeah. So why on earth would you make 2,600 posts of something? Well, I make it because I love it. But also ultimately, yeah. So in my case, I actually love it. So every day I make it, and over time, it gave me a very good living, which is crazy and awesome. And that, when people ask me about working in media and using social media as sort of a tool, I say, figure out the thing that you would make anyways for free. Do a lot of that, thousands of them. You'll probably get better as you go. You'll learn more about it. You'll develop your own individual style, and eventually maybe that will actually be your living. And in my case, maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, it became my living. I was fired from, they cut our entire department at a television channel I worked at in 2016. And then I went interviewed at Fox and a few different places, but I started to understand, wait a second, if I just get a different job, that job's going to get cut because TV is being continually downsized as the internet grows, multiplies, remultiplies, etc. I was like, if I don't create my own environments, everybody's going to get laid off eventually from every job. You have to build your own thing. So I did. And it's cool. And it's freeing. It's very freeing. But in doing so, the controllables become, what do you want to build? And in my case, I love doing it. So I just did the stuff I loved, and eventually it worked. And it maybe isn't that simple, but I'm very grateful. But why would you, if you are somebody who works in the business, so you're the PFL or you're the NBA or you're, whatever, the only metric that matters is engagement. Do people engage with your thing? For how long? Do they come back? How much time do they spend here? The easiest way to get that is emotion. Make people mad, angry, excited, defensive, opinion, conflict, controversy. That's the best. I don't do any of that, or very little. And I said something about Francis Ngannou that got Dana White mad. And then he said some mean things about how I look. And then I made a video saying I like how I look, and then reiterating what I said. That little bit of conflict. Also, I once said Conor McGregor was going to knock out Floyd Mayweather. Those little things, probably, that Dana White thing made me, it sounds crazy, but probably if I made a deal, a brand deal that week, because there was so much engagement, I made the deal for about $5,000 a month more than it was probably gonna be without that additional engagement. I hope if it continues to give my partner as much value as it seems to, that deal, let's say it lasts 2 years, $5,000 a month times 2 years is $120,000. Dana White made me $120,000 by making fun of me. So that was awesome. Now, again, that's a controllable. Do you look at it and go, I can't believe that asshole said, fuck that guy? You could do that. It's not controllable. It is a non-controllable what somebody famous might say about you, but it is a controllable of how you see it, what you do with it, how you respond to it. So as a result, by managing my own emotion, and it wasn't very hard. In fact, I knew right away that this was of useful value to me. And it's not. And now a lesson could be do that a lot, but that's not a way to have a happy life. But at least not for me. Going out there and provoking people to have conflict with me is not a happy life. Going out there and saying extreme things so that people react. When I said that Conor McGregor would knock out Floyd Mayweather, my platforms grew by like 40, 50%. So suddenly people who had never heard of me were in there engaging and calling me an idiot. All very valuable, right? The lesson for some people is do that. Well, for me, that is not the lesson. Because although those things were helpful, they make me uncomfortable. I don't like conflict in that way. I like professional fighting. I understand that conflict is important and necessary, but I'm not going to create it. This is your life. This is the only life you're going to have. How much conflict do you want to have? Like, do you want your day-to-day to be people arguing in your environment? Now, it might have been easier, and it might have been, if I had a business partner, they'd be like, you have to do this. But I don't have a business partner. I'm a free person. So I was able to create the environment that was right for me. Just so happened, in doing so, I was able to develop my own style in ways that were rewarding to me, that I enjoyed, that change made me better, were challenging and hard. And that path eventually, oh, look, I get paid like a neurosurgeon and I live like an artist, those were all controllables. It is a choice. Do I become emotional and live in that world of conflict, controversy, all of that? The low-hanging fruit, which is why everybody's doing it, which is why when somebody says to Leon Edwards about his deceased father, it's low-hanging fruit. It's stupid. The dumbest people in the world can do that. And I mean dumb in a general, like, sort of comedic sense. We shouldn't judge other people based on their intelligence, which is primarily luck. Where were you born? What schooling did you was free for you, if any? Who were the environment around you? No one is smarter or dumber than anybody else. When I say dumb, I mean it in that sort of comedic, cartoonish way. But the cartoon dummy could say something mean about your family. You can do that if you like. That's why it is happening. And that's why this is that era. It's because you are rewarded for it. You are rewarded just by doing these things. So it will continue. So the job of the fighter, don't get affected by it. The job of the reporter or the commentator, my friend Jon in this case, he was just talking on a podcast and he may have literally said it because he understands it'll get people to react and why not. But if he's actually bothered by it, the job becomes, how am I going to be a good husband and father and neighbor and person and citizen and artist and human and happy? How am I going to do this? And that applies to all of us. What is our day-to-day? Why are we mad, scared, emotional? Why are we freaking out at times? Is it what we consume? Because that's a controllable. That's where the controllables are. What do we consume? How do we consume it? We get to pick that much more than you think. I know the internet's throwing things at you, but let's take some more questions because it's super fun. Wow, we got a lot. I guess connect this topic to fighting. Wow. We definitely need to make our thoughts and minds serve us. That's good stuff. We have a limited time every day, and we must be mindful of what we consume and surround yourself with. This is entirely true. This is the biggest life hack you have available to you currently. Everybody. What if you only live 3 more days or 43 more years? 43 years is a very short time. What if it's 19? What if, there's such a short time. Every time you make a choice to consume something that is not serving you and your goals and your dreams and who you are and your identity and your authentic self, that's a choice you made. To connect this topic to fighting, the world will always want to attack and engage with us. We must be patient, have our defense, and open to counterattacking to overcome our opponents. Also, if we're connecting this to self-defense, we just leave. Somebody's coming at you with a knife, your very best choice, if there is nothing behind you, is go that way. Still, intelligently and with whatever safety, get the fuck out of here. The guy with a knife. What are you doing? Right? And so there's that too. Nuance, yeah. New comments, okay. Ever see those Metallica AC/DC super shows? The crowds are definitely throwing entity. That's funny. It's true. I did a piece on this once. I watched one of those in Europe. It was Oasis, and they had like hundreds of thousands of people, and they were going crazy. And the singer, Liam Gallagher, liked to stand there motionless. There was something about that experience that he loved. And of course, that's fascinating. You are not being affected by that. In fact, well, you are. It is affecting you to not be affected. Like, it's still an effect. You are still reacting to it. But in a way you choose. That is a really fascinating. I've always liked your commentary analysis. The fact that you're always upbeat and positive is refreshing. Thanks, man. Glad you're doing well. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, some of this is by choice, and some of it's a lot of work. Like literally, what do they call it? Emotional labor over time, learning to be, to be selective, to be intentional with what you do and how you do it and why you do it. To me, is the secret of life. When my daughter was born, I was like, that's 2 years now. And had been a process. There's a lot of luck in every life. But my daughter came when I was in my 50s. I had learned enough. The last 7, 8, 9, 10 years was about, understanding being a human in a lot of ways, which of course makes you a better artist or worker or business owner or neighbor, wife, whatever, right? It's the secret, right? I think the surrounding negativity is a symptom of a bunch of people living their lives with their nervous system. Yeah, your nervous system is pretty lit if you are responding all day. We all know people like that, and we've all been like that. That's the thing. There's none among us, myself included, who has not had this experience. Mashing keys. I've done it. Not for a few years now. Not for some years. And it's metaphorical too. I don't just mean I haven't mashed keys. I haven't metaphorically mashed keys with the world around me, my wife and my friends and stuff, and that's a learned thing. It's a trained thing. And when Connor hit that uppercut, the truth is Mike Tyson talked about how good he did. And if I were to say, I actually made a piece on this when Francis was about to fight Fury. I was like, the smart predictions make no sense, right? They're nonsensical. Nobody would ever actually tell you believe they know the answer, because these are unknowable things. So what should somebody do when they're making a prediction? They should do what Chael does, because Chael's a genius. And Chael doesn't make a prediction based on what he thinks. And I don't think I'm giving anything away. And I don't think this makes it any less fun. In fact, I think it makes it more fun if you see it this way. He's giving you something that serves a purpose of your reaction, engagement, thinking it's funny, saying something crazy, because that makes way more sense than saying what you think, right? What the true thing that you think, if you study fighting long enough, is that you don't know, right? We don't know. Make 1,000 predictions. You will get somewhere between 500 and 600 correct. It means 400 wrong, right? So why would it make any sense to actually say what you think? Again, if we go back to I don't do them, right? I don't do them. I've done them if you go back and you Google Robert Black, Sherdog, Anderson Silva, my very first game of ever predicting things was when I was just fighting a little, and I did a little work in television. And Sherdog did these pros picks, they called them. And whenever Anderson Silva or Fedor was up, I said they were going to lose, right? Because it doesn't make sense to say Anderson's going to beat Stephan Bonner. What reaction does that get, right? It instead, Stephan Bonner is going to knock out Anderson Silva in round 1. That's fun. It's funny. I don't do it anymore because I've moved away from doing things for funny. It's just not my vibe now, or provocation like that. But I'm a human. I did that once when I was younger and less who I am today, right? Like attracts, people are unhappy, discontented, and feel out of control. Yes, they do. There's a lot of that in the world. Things that capture their sentiments draw their attention, unbeknownst to themselves. That's right. We're all getting our attention stolen. It is our commodity. It's what they're taking, right? It's how people are making money. It's with our attention. Many moons ago, you had the best interview I've seen with Masvidal, Taxi and Breakfast. That was amazing. Yeah. Yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for that one. No, it was great. I work for Jorge now. I commentate his bare knuckle MMA show, Game Bred Bare Knuckle MMA. Hate begets, yeah. Cody, negativity is incentivized. That's really smart too. Negativity brings attention, similar to a kid throwing a fit. So a lot of references when you suddenly become a father or a mother. There's a lot of references you see. I only have one child, but I see people with two children. Somebody does something, and they go, "She did it first." That's literally the internet too. It's like if somebody perceived an injustice, they now feel that is now the chance to do something the same or worse, but they did it first. That's literally what children do, right? Or throw a fit for attention, right? We're just humans, right? We're all pretty rudimentary. We're just trying to learn, right? And some of our learning, if you purposefully get up and try to learn something every day, try to read something or have some intention of what you're going to gain or learn or consume or make, it's probably better than if you're just winding through the world, responding to whatever Facebook or Twitter. I can't call it X. Is there anyone else in that? I just can't. It feels weird. And I can't call it X, formerly Twitter. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just a person, right? I'm just a person for whatever reason. In fact, I shouldn't say that. I could do whatever. I just feel inclined not to. Of course, I could do that. I said I can't. Of course, I could. I just don't. But yeah, we're weird. Humans are weird. But yeah, you don't want to just be bouncing through the world, responding to everything. That's not life. That's not the life you could have. It's not the life it's not the life any of us could have, right? And so I guess that's our ultimate takeaway. I've been hoping that the point of this show, that I'm trying to do every week or so, is what do we learn from the soup? What do we learn from being in the soup, the flavor of the soup, what's happening, right? And maybe the takeaway here is the fighter doesn't have to respond to it. The commentator or the person, anyone doesn't need to see it. We have the ability to not form an opinion. And in fact, I'm going to go back to that one. In a world where everybody is having a knee-jerk reaction opinion based on their life experience that they feel like they chose or selected, even though it formed without any actual intention or mechanism, in a world where everyone is that, if you can slowly work away from that, it's incredibly powerful. You will be happier. You'll probably do better business at whatever your business is. You'll learn more and make more money. You'll be better at most things. If you can train yourself to reject your own opinion as long as humanly possible, it is incredibly powerful because it's scarce. The world is doing the opposite. Scarcity has inherent value. Do the opposite, right? And then go narrow it down, like my friend David Mullen says. What's a list? What can I control? If I cannot control these things, they're none of my business. That takes practice. I cannot control what somebody else says about me. I cannot control, but I can control what I'm learning, what I'm doing, how I respond, what my emotions are, my own behavior, my own thought, what I eat, when I sleep, if I get some exercise. Most everybody's life will improve if they turn off the news, get some exercise, drink more water, eat a little better, and get lots of sleep. Just that. Just do that. Just make a small improvement in each of those things, and life gets better immediately. Those are controllables. You have those. If you get sick, that's a non-controllable. Yeah, it's a controllable of what you're exposed to and how you take care of yourself. But if you get ill, that's a non-controllable, and it will happen. It will be a part of your life. But we can control those things, and there's a lot like that. And so and I'm going to do that today. As soon as I get off here, I'm going to take a little moment and go, okay, well, what's controllable today? What can I do to make the day better, people around me happier, my work better? Okay, well, let's make a list of what those things are. Probably now that I've said it out loud, I'm going to be at the gym within the next hour, right? I'm going to make something a little healthier because I'm thinking it out loud, right? We can all do that. There's no reason to not. There's a book I'm reading currently. It's an old book and I've read it before. It's called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. You're not going to learn anything you don't already know in that book, but it's going to remind you, we all know the things we could do to be a little better, a little more successful, a little happier, a little better. We all know. Uh, but the reason I brought it up is it's easy to eat a cheeseburger. It's also easy to not eat a cheeseburger. It's easy to eat garbage. It's also easy to not eat garbage. I know how to eat something better. It's easy to not go to the gym. It's also easy to go to the gym. You just gotta make these decisions. These are our controllables. Anyways, I think I'm babbling now, which I do, again, I'm very thankful I get to just do whatever, meander down my own path. I don't even, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, how did I get here? It was really hard at times. But now I literally have partnerships and clients and work that I do. I make things related to people. I make things that, I make pieces of art, and sometimes people say, hey, put my logo on it and do something that you like, and I'll do it my own way and I'll make it really fun. Somehow I get to do it my own way, and I can't believe it. I'm very grateful, and it's not easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it to walk a path. Suddenly you wake up one day, you're like, oh shit, I'm here. I literally can say anything I want into the internet, and what I want to say is something positive. Wow, that's great. That's great. That's really cool. All right, I'm out of here. Thank you guys, and thank you for hanging. Like I said, I had a great conversation with my friend Coach Barry Robinson. It's on my Instagram. I think it's the first thing posted. It's like an hour, maybe. Maybe this is an hour too. I don't know. Great morning. A lot of fun. I appreciate you guys immensely. I'm going to try to be back next week. Much love. Enjoy the hostilities, my friend. Black out.